You can probably remember when this happened. With tension around the Roro building throughout the world and North America specifically, in a pre-game press conference before a game between the OKC Thunder and Utah Jazz, Rudy Gobert on March 11th decided to mock the virus by going around and touching a bunch of microphones. Little did Rudy know, 2 days later, he himself would test positive for the Roro and consequently shut down his Jazz vs Thunder game and the NBA itself, which ultimately sent the whole sporting world and North America into a downward spiral. This is only part of the story of how Rudy Gobert broke the NBA, and now this summer, Rudy has done it again, only this time on a much different scale. Utah Jazz center Rudy Gobert has had an extremely accomplished playing career. 3-time All-Star, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and 4-time All-NBA. But Rudy's image has always had to do with things unrelated to playing basketball on the court itself, most obviously with his virus incident. The Jazz were preparing for their March 11th game against the Thunder in Oklahoma, where days before Rudy was seen walking out of his pregame conference, intentionally touching all the microphones to indicate the virus was nothing to worry about. 2 days later, on the day of the game, it was revealed Gobert was feeling sick and he wouldn't play in the game, but it didn't seem too serious, so the Thunder and the Jazz took the court for what looked to be an ordinary game night. The game was almost ready to start when a few people in suits rushed onto the court. No one had any idea what was going on. Some even thought there was a possible bomb threat. The refs later discussed after a while of standing around and decided to call the game off. No one on the court had any idea why, but as we all know, the game was called off because Rudy had gotten the virus. This was obviously not a good look because there was a lot of uncertainty at the time with the severity of the situation and the virus, and immediately after this, Adam Silver decided to postpone the NBA. Although the NBA was the first major sports league in America to entirely shut down, many others followed. The NCAA tournament, the NHL, and many others. Rudy Gobert's carelessness towards the virus was the first domino to fall. Rudy would eventually recover from the virus quite smoothly, but this didn't stop him from transferring it to his star teammate, Utah Jazz guard Donovan Mitchell, who had a much tougher time with the virus. Mitchell caught it one day after on March 12th, and Mitchell was not pleased with Gobert in the slightest. On Good Morning America, when asked whether he had spoken to Gobert since the whole situation, he said this: "To be honest with you, it took a while for me to kinda cool off. I read what he said. I'm glad he's doing okay. I'm glad I'm doing well." The middle portion where Donovan was talking about what Rudy had said was where Rudy came out apologizing for his actions, calling himself careless. Although this sounded like from Mitchell's comments that he and Rudy could move forward and salvage something, this never really happened throughout the rest of their time together. In fact, this was the start of Rudy breaking his relationship with Mitchell and the Jazz. Over the next 2 and a bit season, the Jazz's stars couldn't figure out much on or off the court. In the resulting bubble season, the Jazz lost in a tight 7-game series where Donovan was the star, but it was clear their relationship was melting. The following season, it was looking brighter for the Jazz, as the two said they were using their bubble spat as fire for the season. And it was working. The Jazz managed to snatch the 1 seed, and all looked relatively normal for the two. In the first round, after a Game 1 scare versus the Grizzlies, they managed to beat them in a manageable 5-game series. But in the second round versus the Clippers, all the problems resurfaced. Mitchell put up big numbers, but Terrence Mann and the small ball Clippers caused huge problems all series, as Mann put up 39 in a Game 6 loss for the Jazz, where all fingers were pointed towards Rudy Gobert, as it looked like he was getting exposed. In the 2021-22 season, the Jazz hit their peak, dropping from a dominant 1 seed to a shaky 5 seed, where Gobert and Mitchell constantly jabbed at each other in the media. Gobert said they didn't get their hands dirty, and Mitchell responded saying all the finger pointing was childish. And to that, Rudy said that he just speaks his mind. None of this would matter if the Jazz could put it behind them though and make a serious run in the playoffs. Well, the exact opposite happened. They got torched by Jalen Brunson and a Luka-less Mavs for 3 games. Donovan Mitchell got banged up in Game 5 as they lost by almost 40, and they ended up losing in 6, with Bojan Bogdanovic missing the game-winning shot. It was the same old for the Jazz. Poor defense, and it was all blamed on Gobert for the most part, whether fairly or not, and Rudy had had enough. On May 2nd, the tweet from Sean O'Connell came out that said Rudy had informed the Jazz, saying it was either him or me, Donovan or Rudy. And for the future, it seems as though it's none of them. But firstly, the Jazz decided to stick with Mitchell and do away with Gobert. What ensued with Gobert is what broke the NBA a second time, this time on a much less serious scale, but one that had serious impacts on NBA free agency and movement in the NBA. On July 1st, Gobert was traded to the Wolves.
We have some breaking news, though. The Utah Jazz, they have agreed to trade 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, the Timberwolves. They send Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, the number 22 overall pick, Walker Kessler, 4 first-round picks to the Jazz.
Yep, that was the package. Beverley, Vanderbilt, Beasley, Balmero, first-round pick of the Wolves, Walker Kessler, and 4 future first-rounders in a pick swap. This here broke the NBA. At a time where free agency was fresh, rumors of KD and Kyrie trades, Westbrook, etc., and quite a few notable free agents still available. This put an abrupt stop to all of that. Now teams who had semi-decent players they could trade assessed what had just happened and decided to shoot up their asking price. For Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz were now asking for Rudy value and more, after seeing how incompetent these front offices were. To get KD, you now had to trade upwards of 10 players, including top draft picks, and after that, everything just took a nosedive. Rudy Gobert had broken the trade and free agency market, which in turn halted what was looking to be a whole new NBA landscape. KD is now staying in Brooklyn, along with Kyrie, and Donovan Mitchell hasn't yet been able to find a new home. Rudy Gobert's time in the NBA has been an eventful one, on the court and off the court, etc. But people seem to always find a way to point fingers at him for anything, and that will be no different when looking back on how he managed to alter and break the NBA, not once, but twice. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, stay rested. See you in the next one.